I remember after I got out of the cult I was in for 10 years, I ended up in a Reformed church where they thought they were really doing it for the Lord. And I came from an environment where we thought we were really, really, really doing it for the Lord. So, to me, I always say that these zealous Reformed people were tepid and lukewarm compared to what I was used to. That's what I thought. I was still kind of in my pride, But I do remember that the pastor was always having these group meetings with brothers. And I never wanted to attend because he would always talk about how they got out of there having had the most powerful time with the Lord and really had been brought to tears at seeing their corruption and idolatry in their heart and had just wept before the Lord. And that to them was a peak spiritual experience. I mean, if they could spend their whole time repenting, they felt like they were being true before the Lord. And I get that it's sincere and God desires truth in his in the inward parts, But I felt like I didn't really understand everything yet. But I knew this. There was no food. And they were taking rather than giving in their ministry. Their ministry was like a robbery. I didn't even have that word for it yet. I just knew that they exacted demand, and that was their ministry. And their purpose, sincere though it was to bring people into an agonizing sense of their sinfulness. Because what did they hope to gain from this? What did they hope to gain? I don't know, because they always turned back to the law and told me that, we keep the law because we love God, or we treasure the law, we endeavor to keep it, not because we're under the curse of it, but because this is how we love God. And in the background, they believed that if you weren't like that, then you probably weren't actually saved. You had spurious faith. Your faith was just a mental assent to a list of facts, not saving faith. Because saving faith produces this love for the law that they had, which put them in a cycle of seeing the law, seeing their failure, repenting of their failure, going back to the law, seeing their failure, repenting of their failure, and there was no end to it. And they would just try to get deeper and deeper into the knowledge of their own failure, hoping that somewhere down in the depths of all that corruption they'd touch something real at last that would give them rest. But they never talked about rest, so I don't even know that that's their goal. I really didn't know what was their goal. It endlessly introspecting and looking at the idols of your heart is just that. It's endless introspection. Anytime you look away from Christ and look at yourself, you're looking at the flesh. And we know that nothing good dwells in the flesh. It is an endless source of corruption. And that's why it must be kept at bay by actually looking away from it and looking to Christ and the gospel. And I started to see this during that time. And it reminds me of a hymn called Hast Thou Seen Captivated by His Beauty, I think, or Hast Thou Seen Him, Heard Him, Known Him. But one of the verses is not the crushing of those idols with its bitter, void, and smart, but the beaming of His beauty and the unveiling of His heart. And that is what draws us. It is the attractiveness of Christ. And what He does is He brings us to Himself, and He's our bridegroom, and we can't fast in the presence of our bridegroom. That's what he said to the Pharisees who asked him, why do disciples of John fast, but your disciples don't fast, and we fast? He said, how can my disciples fast while they have the bridegroom with them? While you have the bridegroom, there's no fasting. Fasting is associated with the deep sorrow about your sinfulness. But when you have the bridegroom, you are in a new position. You are one with Christ, and you're in Christ, and you have his forgiveness, and the past is behind you. That old life is behind you, and the corruption of the flesh is covered by the blood, and the flesh itself, which is the source of all that corruption, is subdued while you look not at the things which are seen, but the things which are unseen, and you walk by faith. And the best way to walk by faith is to have a heart full of love for your bridegroom. And that's what was missing. What those brothers should have been doing was getting together and having a wonderful time loving the bridegroom, instead of just looking at themselves and their sin and their sorrow. They had a very sincere heart in pursuit, but it was going nowhere. I couldn't say anything about it at the time, but I'm saying something about it now. Just my thoughts. I haven't shared in a little bit. We've had a very busy weekend. Talk to you later.